Creating a live.
Hey guys, I wanted.
Whoa, wrong thing. Alrighty. Hello, everybody. We're just making sure that everything is up and proper right now. We should be good. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. There's a couple things that I wanted to talk about relating to the new set heavy hitters and overall PVE, because PVE is what I've been looking forward to if the cats don't kill themselves while I'm on stream, because I have 5 of them. Anyways, getting back on topic. Jones may not be able to be here as much moving forward. Probably trying to really stick on Tuesdays as he has been lately, but Saturdays is going to be out for him because he is fortunately out of town for work for the next little while. So with that being said, let's dive into this new and fun set and see what it has for us today. I want to refresh this just to make sure that everything is good. Yes. All right, everything is up and running. If there is any audio problems or anything like that, please let me know. I can try to fix it on my end. I do have all of my systems up. But let's dive right into it. So with the new set heavy hitters, there's a lot of really fun things out there. Let's go ahead and open up heavy hitters over here. We'll pull that up real fast. And get right into it. So, oh yes, and we do have music today from one of our good friends. I'm going to try to make sure that it's not too overpowering for you guys, though, so let me know. With that being said, heavy hitters. So, heavy hitters... No, I want the set. I got to get the abbreviation for the set, but I'll get that in just a second. Heavy hitters is looking like it's meant for a lot of PvP, not PvE, but it has potential for some PvE cards in it. And with everything that's been going on, we knew that PvE existed and was coming out, is what they told us. They have yet to come out with a PvE. They mentioned it right along beside kind of the rest of the formats that existed, which is Pit Fight, that we all know, and that everyone, I think, is going to come to love with this new set that is currently out and active right now with heavy hitters. Let me get heavy hitters up and running. But as we're doing it, we're going to look at a couple cards as well. So first and foremost, cards for PvE. This Rounds on Me is a great one if you're going to take damage and want to help out your teammates, because we know that the game is supposed to consist of teammates. And with that, we're going to need to have this card draw for everybody or ramp buff for everybody. Also, this means the next attacks that would target you also are going to get downgraded in power. So if we're fighting multiple people or just fighting one single target, hopefully if it's going to be directed at you or it is directed at you on your next turn, this will help bring it down a little bit for each attack coming your way. Now, with that being said, we also have another really good card, which is Cokes of Commotion. A lot of people made a run on these when we heard PvE was originally coming out. This card skyrocketed in price and then has kind of dwindled its way back down, because this is another really great PvE card. As anyone that has done Flesh and Blood and even peeked into PvE, this is a card that has been huge for the PvE potential format, because of all the things that it does. Each player creates a quicken. Each player draws a card. Each player gains a life. Now, you can only pick one of these, or you can pick any numbers of these if Cokes of Commotions hits. Yeah, pick any number if Cokes of Commotion hits. So you can pick any number of these as long as Cokes of Commotion hits, and you get all of these benefits, which is really, really good. That means all of your teammates are getting huge benefits and buffs. Also, with that being said, the new Bard that is out has some really fun, just help out your teammate cards. Each other hero draws a card, which means I need my teammates to draw cards. With these things happening, if they happen in the correct order, you're looking at anywhere from the next player after you having 2 extra cards in hand to having 3 extra cards in hand. Also, if they get a Cokes of Commotion in hand or a This Round's on Me in hand, that is another card that they get to have for the next person, and then your Bard would get another card. So there's a lot of give help to your players in a type of PvE format, but also with that being said, we can't lean too heavily into just helping out your players or teammates because you still have to dish out enough damage. So this is an interesting kind of format because we don't know how it's going to play out. I really want to see it play out because I think it'll be the commander of Flesh and Blood, and everyone will turn to PvE, especially if it ends up being as fun as everyone's talking about it being, which is type of a dungeon type D&D crawl, which is kind of what they hinted to, or if it ends up being more like the PvE that someone else kind of already temporarily made and put it up, where you're just fighting a boss and it has a ton of health points and it has certain actions and reactions that it gets to do, and it targets the person with the most health, the person with the lowest health, and it just kind of goes through that. That also would be an interesting scenario. We don't know which one it's going to be. People have played different versions of their own PvE, but Flesh and Blood has not yet come out with some type of PvE officially, to our knowledge, that is like, here, this is Flesh and Blood's player versus environment scenario. And it's something that I really want to see, and I really hope that we do get to see it. But Flesh and Blood has not. That it's going to be a lot of fun for everybody to do. And the reason that I'm hoping for that is because I know friends that don't necessarily play card games, but I could literally build decks and be like, hey, here's how this plays, here's how this triggers. And playing versus an environment is a lot easier because then they don't feel like it's player versus player. It's a group effort to accomplish a goal that my friends can sit down and play with me. And it's, in my opinion, a better way to introduce a player with a group effort kill, and they're like, oh, well, I really like the way this game mechanics works. I like the equipment. I like this. And you're like, oh, yeah, well, they also have a player versus player where you can take your specific build of character and someone else's, and you can clash together and see who has the better, deck and build and strategy. And that's how I feel like people can initiate getting people into Flesh and Blood easier, is with a format that isn't player versus player, but is group oriented. Because I could literally walk over to my dad and be like, hey, I want you to play a game with me. I could hand my dad a deck and say, hey, here's how this works. We'll kind of get into it as we go. We'll play a couple rounds. And I could get my own dad into it. But it would be a lot harder to sit down and say, hey, we're going to go player versus player, and whoever wins is the victor, and try to teach him to play. He would still have fun, but I don't think that he would get as invested as if we were playing something like a player versus environment. And the reason for that being is, in a player versus environment, it's a team effort, and there's a camaraderie there that you don't get anywhere else. In Commander, Magic's Commander, I feel like you get that camaraderie to a certain degree until the politics come in and everyone does backstabbing. Because initially, 3 players will be like, he's the big bad guy. That guy over there with the Markov deck or the token deck or whatever he has is the big bad guy. He needs to die this turn. And everyone goes, agreed, agreed, agreed. Cool. And then everyone goes after him. Now, the tides normally turn at some point when someone gets the upper hand and, breaks the alliance. But there's a little bit of camaraderie just in those moments of everyone unifying around who the big bad is and have to take them out. And that's why I think Commander is so big, is because you get those little moments of victory and winning, of people feeling like they're working together, and then you get betrayal and intrigue, and that's a lot of fun for players overall. And Flesh and Blood doesn't have that, and even Pit Fight I don't think will initiate that, because in Pit Fight everyone is not a valid target, except with the new card they are, but you still have to put that on the battlefield before that's legal. So with the new cards and all the other different cards that are currently coming out, we have a lot of different stuff going on in this right here. In the card draw, in the bards helping out, and even with the Adjudicator, which I don't know if he's going to be valid in PvE. We also don't know who's going to be valid in PvE. Some characters are said to be banned from all formats, but are they going to be banned from PvE? Is the Adjudicator going to be someone that we want in the PvE? Is Rudy going to be a deck that we want to see in PvE? These are all questions that I have, and I'm sure the community has as well, and we really don't have answers, because we don't know what decks are going to be extremely useful and not useful in a format, because we don't know what the format even looks like. But my bigger question is, with that being said, are we actually going to get the format? Or is PvE for Flesh and Blood going to be that promise that LSS made and never fulfilled, like all of the land problems that Magic has had, where they've created half a set of land and then left it to die and never come out with the rest of it? Are we going to basically have our first glimpse of Flesh and Blood's we mentioned it and then we never talked about it again type of scenario? This is really what I want to know, because I have a lot of friends that had got into Flesh and Blood at one point in time and literally have told me the moment PvE comes out, I want to sit down and play it, and if I like it, I probably would turn around and buy money to buy decks just to play PvE, because PvE is potentially our commander, and PvE is going to keep the game alive longer if it turns out to be our commander than the game will be alive competitively. Magic is only alive because of its outside of competitive play game status that people still play it today. I have people that I know who have never stepped foot in a game shop in the last 5 years and still play Magic the Gathering. Haven't bought cards in the last 5 years and still play Magic the Gathering. Why? Because Commander is what they love. They don't need the new cards. They have their few Commander decks that they love. Their friends have their few Commander decks, and that is all they play. They don't buy cards, but they still play the game. And when these people finally do get back into the game buying cards, which I have a couple friends who were older than 5 years, they were like 7 years, finally got back into card shops and started looking at cards, buying new cards, and doing those things. These are the type of things that Flesh and Blood needs. We need a PvE status so people will buy their cards, hold on to their cards, and look forward to playing PvE. They'll get their friends over, they'll play a PvE boss. One of their friends who are active in the Flesh and Blood community will be like, hey, did you know there was a new PvE boss? And they're like, really? Oh, yeah, I only know this one. Oh, only know this one? Well, there's 4 more actually past this one, so you just haven't been active. So let me go get those 4 bosses and we can fight those, or however it works. When we start having a system like that, we will have a group of people that will keep the game alive, will play with other people that normally wouldn't play Flesh and Blood, because it will be easier to get my friends into a game when it's a team effort and not a one-on-one effort. And I think this is going to be the big difference of where Flesh and Blood either hinges or fails in the long term of things. Yes, the game is collectible. Yes, the game has a competitive scene. But competitive scenes eventually dwindle out. Even Magic's competitive scene still has a competitive scene, but it's not like it used to be. The hype when Magic was on its high side, and the competitive scene when it was huge, was way bigger than it is today. But the reason the game is still functioning really well is because people don't care about the competitive scene. They care about buying the new cards. They care about the game itself to play with their friends. Now, you have your competitive players. That's fine. And we will always have competitive players. But when it comes to things like this card right here is a beautiful example of a potential fun PvE deck that someone brings to my table and says, hey, I'm not a Flesh and Blood player. I played PvE. My friends helped me make this deck. Anybody want to play PvE with me? And they sit down with this deck. I've never seen the deck. And I look at it and I go, you know what? This is going to be fun. Let me go get my specific card draw deck that also uses cracked baubles or could utilize the cracked baubles and leverage this person to its fullest potential. Or even look at the deck and be like, hey, this is a really good deck. Have you thought about adding these cards into it? It would help you out a lot. Just the little things like that, where we could leverage these things, having more of a camaraderie around a team effort type game rather than a one-on-one. I play Flesh and Blood. I love one-on-one games. I still film them. I put them up. But I like the thought of a player versus environment. The thought of me getting my friends that don't even know anything about Flesh and Blood and saying, hey, we're going to play a game. And them going, oh, I don't want to play it. You've mentioned it once or twice. And I'm like, no. This is your deck. This is your deck. This is your deck. We're a team. We're going to go raid a dungeon. We're going to go beat a big bad. We're going to go play it however it's played. We're all working together. I'll help you play your decks. I'll help you play how everything's supposed to play out. And we'll see how it works. If you guys like it, I'll pull out a different boss and we'll do it again. And I could get my friends into this so much easier if that was the case. They would eventually want to play one-on-one to try their decks out one-on-one. They would eventually want to play different PvE type style of gameplay. They would try out different heroes. And I may not get them into the game as in-depth as I am into the game, but I would get their foot in the door. They would probably buy one or two extra heroes to have on hand. They'd show it to their friends. And everybody would become a game on the shelf that gets put up for game night as a potential game that someone gets to play. And that's really what I think Flesh and Blood should be striving for. Yes, you want to be collectible. Yes, you want to be competitive. Yes, you want to have those scenes where it's known and big. But you also want to have that little nostalgic where someone has played it maybe today, 5 years from now, they haven't touched the game. They still have PvE decks from when PvE first came out. Those are sitting on the shelf with whatever you need to be able to play it, and they still pull it out for family night or whenever their friends come over, off the shelf, down, just like a normal board game. That is the type of system that needs to happen. And that's what happens with Magic Commander decks. Those things sit on the shelf sometimes for months, for years, before those are pulled back off and played with again. And there's no really other way to get around the fact that Flesh and Blood doesn't have this right now. And if I had to say one of the biggest things that Flesh and Blood was missing, it is a casual play scene. We don't have a casual play scene in Flesh and Blood. Everyone would say, oh, well, Blitz is more casual play. Look at Skirmish Season. Skirmish Season is not casual play. And they're like, well, that's competitive. No, it's because of that scene that there isn't really a Blitz casual play format. There is not a CC casual play format. If you are sitting down across the person from you, you are literally leveraging your deck to 100% of its potential and trying to win that game. Every game is a learning opportunity, even if you're taking it casual. It's not the same as being able to sit down and play something like a PVE where I don't have to compete with my friends, where I don't have to compete with the person across from me at the table. It is a different camaraderie. It is a different feeling. And if we do not get this, in my opinion, sooner rather than later, and I can't tell you how soon that is. Heck, I'd even ask Rudy how soon he thinks I would need it, and I would tell you that he probably would even say, I don't know when that is. But I do think that he would agree that PvE needs to happen sooner rather than later, and if it doesn't, it will hurt the game. Initially, no. But long-term lifespan of the game, it will impact in a major way, whether it happens or doesn't happen. If it happens early enough, it will increase the lifespan of the game dramatically, in my opinion. This is my opinion. If it does not happen soon enough, it will not help the game either way. People will have fallen far enough away from Flesh and Blood and enough of the sets that it won't matter to them, and if it happens soon enough, it will be just in time, in my opinion, to revitalize players that left the game, revitalize people who are thinking about leaving the game, and so much more. And I don't know how to stress this enough. I don't know what else I can do with these type of cards. You know, this card matched up with this card is insane. These type of cards in a PvE mindset are just the things that would be incredible to see if we can play this in PvE, but they won't come out with the game. And I'm saying this because they're coming out with all these other formats, new formats for draft, new format for draft, new format for draft. They've done this time and time again, every single set, that they've almost left PvE in the background, and I don't know really whether they will ever finish PvE. At this point, I'm losing hope that we will get a PvE, but I still believe in the game, and that's why I'm continuing to make content. I'm continuing to be here, because I know that eventually, deep down, that we will get a PvE. Whether it's soon enough, only time will tell. And that is one of my most favorite sayings, is only time will tell whether we will get to use these cards to the greatest of their ability, whether we will not get to, see them and we will have to play normal, stuff, or we'll just get to do heavy hitters and we'll just have to live with our arena fight as our commander. And personally, I won't play it. I'm not a big arena fan of pit fight. That's just my personal thing. I've had fun playing pit fight with the few times that I've played pit fight. Not fully up my alley though. I love Blitz. Blitz is more of my favorite thing. It's short enough games, quick enough games, and really enjoyable that I don't feel like I'm getting stuck into a long-term game. If I'm going to play a longer-term game where something like a pit fight where everybody's going to have to take their turns and it's going to be a really interesting game, I don't want to be playing my opponents. I want to be working with them and to accomplish a final goal. I want to see weird KO decks that utilize this in my PvE scenario, that are rolling a ton of dice, that are influencing their rolls, that weave between the merchant and everyone else. KO's turn, he's already starting off with 8 or 9 cards in hand, and he's at the final boss. We're all almost on dead, or death's door, as Sorcery would say. We are looking worse for wear, and he's going to literally use all 6 of those cards to trigger the last little bit of his stuff. Maybe even 10 cards if he got to use this the turn before, and trying to kill the boss in one foul swoop of KO's turn. That's the things I want to see. But we're not going to get to see those type of things until PvE happens, unless everyone in a pit fight is going to give cards to their opponents so that a KO can have like 10 cards on his turn to do some crazy, stupid shenanigans. But, as everyone knows, in Commander, any type of pit fight scenario where you have other opponents, you don't want to help them. You're going to do your best not to give them cards. As a matter of fact, you're going to play cards like this that make everyone a valid target so that you can kill the guy that's diagonal across from you because he's the biggest threat to you and the rest of the party. That's really what's going on here. I don't know how else to kind of say it or get around the fact that we're not getting PvE. We haven't gotten PvE, but we really desperately need it. Because there's a lot of players that want to play cards like this and in a PvE format, that we have judges that would love to be able to play their adjudicator if they're allowed. And I don't see why some of these cards wouldn't be allowed in PvE because it's a team-based format. The adjudicator should be allowed. The merchants, all of them should be allowed, including Rudy's specialization card. That would just be a hilarious fun deck to see in a PvE format. Someone sit down with Rudy, the gem merchant, with every gem card that they possibly can in their deck to see those things. And this is what would make it fun and hilarious to go to a card shop and there be a huge PvE event because Flesh and Blood released something, and people are just bringing all sorts of crazy shenanigan decks that you would never play. That's the big thing. You would never play in any other format whatsoever. You're just not gonna and can't play in any other format. But in this one scenario, you can. Because everyone would hate it, but I would also love to see it, is playing the Bard in a PvE where everyone shuffles their decks together and becomes one thing that everyone draws from. Yes, people would actually hate it if you had to do it, but if you made... they were all owned by one person, he's like, I want to play the Bard. I have 7 other decks or 10 other decks that people can choose from. Go pick what you want, and I'll shuffle all of them together and I'll sort it out later. Like, this would be fun beyond belief. It would just be a lot of fun. And I think that we're missing out on a very niche window, but also a window that will widen very quickly depending on how good PvE is made and depending on how well everything else is crafted. If everything else is crafted extremely well, it is a fun, extremely interactive, team-based system, which is kind of what they hinted at. We don't know. Then I really think that things like this would be really useful in PvE. And we'd see people playing bards. We'd see people playing the weird merchants. We would see people playing things that you don't see being played anywhere else. And can't play anywhere else because they're banned in other formats. Playing the Adjudicator. These are things that I'd love to see being able to be played competitively because there's a format that these things become potentially useful in weird ways. Yes, I'm sure you'll have meta decks for PvE that everyone's like, oh, you want to play like this for the best of your abilities, but you're going to have a couple friends that get together and say, fudge that, and they're going to make Black Horse decks where you're not going to see them coming. You're not going to know, okay, why are you playing this merchant over that merchant? It's just all these different things that have a really unique potential and scenario over everything else. I mean, we're looking at even cards inside of heavy hitters that have a lot of potential for. It's like, hey, that's PV. No, that's pit fight. Like that's how me and my friend. This is PV pit fight. Like because there are cards. And I'd have to see if I can find one real quick. But like most of these cards that give you tokens are really good pit fight and PVE things. Wagering for gold and other things, I don't know how that would work versus, a boss or anyone else. There has to be some type of like person that you hit that you can flip off the card deck for. So there's a lot of different things when it comes to just stuff like this overall. And there's cards in here that like lean towards being either PvE or pit fight, but they're mainly pit fight cards, but could be utilized in a PvE format. I hope you guys enjoyed this. PvE is something that I've been looking forward to. It's why I wanted to make a video about it. I've made a couple other videos about it because I feel like it's going to be big when it finally hits the field, if it hits the field in time. It's kind of like drawing in Flesh and Blood. If you draw a card at the right time, you change the outcome of the game. If you draw it too late, you're already dead. And that's going to be the kicker. Is PvE going to be drawn in time and hit the battlefield to change the player's mindset about casual, just fun play in Flesh and Blood? And everyone can say that there is a casual fun play for competitive or for CC and all of that stuff, but even when you're playing CC and you're playing Blitz, you're still technically practicing your base games. Even when I'm playing for fun, I'll try things out that I would never try in a competitive game to see if it would work or might work. And they do sometimes. But I'm still improving my overall competitive gameplay for those formats rather than just playing to have fun. I may be doing something new and fun to try it out, but I'm still trying to improve my game. Where in a PvE format, where I have my friends and everything, the only thing we're trying to improve is how the decks run together to beat the environment. I don't know how else to say it. I really think that only time will tell whether this ends up being good or bad for everyone involved. I hope that everyone enjoys the new set Heavy Hitters that is out and gets a good look at all of the cards that you've enjoyed drafting or will enjoy drafting this. I plan on at least drafting it once if I have the time and resources. But with that being said, we love all of you guys over here on our end. We hope to continue to do this for you guys, to push forward, to grow as a community, get to the point where we can give cards away. Like I said, that's one of the big things that we want to get to. We want to be able to give a lot of cards away back to the community that we've fostered and built and love. And we hope that you guys will continue on our journey with us. But we will see you guys next time. We love you, and stay safe.